In the muddiest places, beauty blooms. In the harshest lives, love survives. This is the story of a single lily that changed the way a doctor, and later a father, saw the world forever. A story about perspective, resilience, and the power of love that never fades.
When the fog descended, silence settled over the village after the discovery of old Billy's departure. His notes were left stacked, serving as entertainment for the locals who chose to share them with others.
Number 001 Lily. When I was still a teenager, I met a doctor named Celso Charuri. This man was of immense importance in my life. He was the one who helped me see that what I was already perceiving from the invisible world was simply part of a different frequency, and nothing more. One day, Dr. Celso told us a story about a certain Lily. He had a cleaning lady who took care of his office, and this woman asked him to get some antibiotics for her cousin who had pneumonia. Without hesitation, he offered to send the medication to whatever address she provided, but the assistant told him it would be very difficult because no pharmacy would deliver to a poor neighborhood, especially on a rainy day. So, he offered to give the woman a ride and take the opportunity to check on the patient himself. The distance was far greater than he had imagined, and along the way they exchanged thoughts on the difficulties of living so far out. To his surprise, the woman didn't complain at all. When they finally reached the base of the hill, he was able to truly see what real poverty looked like. They left the car under the watch of a local. The shack was at the top of the hill, and as she had said, it would be impossible for any delivery person to reach it without getting completely covered in mud. What had started as a favor had now turned into a mission. When they finally reached the spot, he saw the barest conditions for two women who had no support. He examined the sick cousin, handed over the box of medicine with some extra money so they could buy something to eat, and then turned away so they wouldn't see him in tears. It was then that the patient got up to console the doctor, who was now covered in wet dirt. What she said is what matters most to repeat now. "Look, doctor," she said, pointing outside of what they called a house. "There's a lilac lily that bloomed this week and it still has flowers." The doctor, awkward and emotional, attempted a smile through his tears but didn't understand what she meant. "If you want, I can go pick it for you and you can take it home for your wife. She'll like it." Still uncomfortable, the doctor asked the patient to get back into bed because it was very cold, and the idea of going out in the rain seemed completely insane. But the woman insisted he at least look at the flower. When he didn't give in, she began describing the plant to him to encourage him to look. It was the most perfect descriptive narrative, something no botanist could have done better, or perhaps even something the artist Margaret Mee could have painted. Along with the description, she shared how important the little plant was to harmonize the area. Everyone there respected its beauty, and no criminal dared disturb the area because of the beauty that emanated from that flower. The doctor, still unsure, stepped to the door and tried to see if he could spot the famed flower in the dark of night. But before he could see the flower, what he saw was a scene of inhuman, suffering. The sewage from the shacks was exposed to the open sky, none of the houses had running water, and the electricity posed a fire hazard. Even the pigs would have protested being there. And finally, there it was, the lilac lily swaying between some loose rocks on an improbable slope, struggling to survive against the flood of trash that the rainwater was pushing against its already bent stem. It was then that the urge to cry overwhelmed him, and he felt his years of education fall away. In that moment, he was learning far more than he had in his entire life. Someone was showing him how to truly see in the darkness of life. Someone with nothing was teaching him that what we see depends on where we direct our attention. The beauty she had described so well was, in fact, surrounded by trash and even excrement. But the woman, in her complete misery, chose to see and appreciate the beauty in nature, anchoring her hopes in that simple presence and preserving her self-worth. Naturally, the doctor left everything as he had found it and had to reevaluate his values from then on. This story has stayed with me, and there have been countless times when I've seen a flower growing in a surprising place. It always makes me wonder why this happens. Is there some unfortunate soul in need of nature's gentle touch nearby? Then I realized that perhaps these simple flowers, lost in an inhospitable space, were, in an extraordinary way, giving of themselves in their blooming, despite the lack of ideal conditions. This is life and nature in their magical dance of existence. The importance of existing, no matter how or where, began to capture my attention as my own existence grew more improbable by the day. That lily from the slums had its existence acknowledged and valued, and it fulfilled its role. I was going to say that not all flowers fulfill their role, but nature within me stops me because there is nothing in it that doesn't fulfill its duty. So, my children, this is the story of the old man who, by luck or misfortune, happens to be your father. For a long time, I allowed myself to believe that, by some whim of the wind or carelessness of a bird, I had been born in the wrong place, without the thorns necessary to protect my growth amidst so much friction. What, even if it were true, wouldn't have prevented nature from making at least one flower bloom from me, and it did so 3 times, TMNG. When you were children, you could see who I was through the way I vibrated. But as you became adults, that lens shrank and we all started seeing others based on how much financial wealth they produced. But you will still be able to perceive that subtlety in each other and in yourselves. You will do this without the mistake of thinking there is something wrong with softness, without confusing it with fragility or, even worse, weakness. My daughter at 5 years old used to refer to me as love. Daddy is love, she recorded with that angelic voice. This was the recognition that made my time in this world worthwhile. I am still love, and that is what remains of everything else I tried to learn to be in order to offer you a better example. Everything else vibrates with more weight and density. Everything else stays on the ground, sinks in the sea, gets lost in the veiled air with the wind. Everything else is forgotten and fades away, dies. Love does not.
You are right, Chris. The synthetic AI voice reader sounds a little artificial, but it is not bad. It works just fine for me.
It is better than my voice. Actually, what counts here should be Billy's note's significance. Someone with nothing was teaching him that what we see depends on where we direct our attention.
This encapsulates the story's central message about perspective and the power of focusing on beauty amid hardship. Daddy is love. This simple, childlike expression of affection symbolizes the purest form of recognition and legacy, anchoring the narrator's reflections on his worth and purpose. Love doesn't fade away.
This closing thought elevates love as the ultimate enduring force, offering a sense of hope and continuity. The text is a poignant exploration of human resilience, the enduring power of love, and the importance of seeing beauty and meaning even in adversity. It invites readers to reevaluate their values, focus on what truly matters, and embrace softness as a strength rather than a flaw.
The lily symbolizes the beauty and resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. It invites us to find meaning and purpose no matter our circumstances. The philosophical reflections encourage readers to question societal norms that prioritize wealth, productivity, and outward appearances over inner values like love, gentleness, and purpose. By comparing human lives to nature's cycles, the story celebrates interconnectedness and harmony, reminding us that every life, like every flower, has its role and inherent value.
I can't provide a well-educated opinion like yours, but I can tell you that I wish I could have known old Billy better.
His life that goes on.